Hey, what's happening, peeps? We back again with another one. I appreciate y'all tuning in to today's content. As always, before we get too deep in today's content, like, comment, subscribe to the channel, tell a friend and tell a friend. Appreciate all the feedback I've been getting and keep it coming. Let me know what you want to hear more of so I can give you more of what you want to know about as well. So just dropped the previous episode talking about, just thinking about, getting ready for your interviews and jobs and that nature there as well. And so someone reached out to me and wanted me to go a step further. So, I got some interview tips I just want to kind of keep sharing. Touched on a little bit in the previous episode, but I think I want to go a little bit further there as well. So let's get right into it. Interview prep, right? How do you get yourself ready? Questions you be aware of, how to ask. There's sometimes the questions are traps or kind of setup questions there as well. And I'll explain what I mean by that, right? But the first thing I want to say is research the company. Obviously you're getting interviewed for an opportunity to join the organization. So, be aware of the company. If it's a big company, do all the research you can. If it's a small company, you may have to dig a little bit further. Use LinkedIn. It's a great opportunity for you to build connections with people that are at the company that have insight, stuff that's not on the website or not in the job post that can help you really set yourself up for success there as well. So I just want to make sure I give you that kind of tip from an interview prep perspective there, because it's something that does you want to be aware of or be mindful of as you're getting ready to interview for the job there as well. So the next one I have is really the next kind of few I want to touch on are some kind of questions or things that you want to avoid, these pitfalls, right? And so the first one is the pitfall that I see often is people will say, the interviewer will ask you, tell me about yourself. And a person will just recite their entire resume, right? And that's not what they want to hear, right? You have your resume in front of them. They can see where you worked, what your GPA is, everything, where you've lived, et cetera, et cetera. So when they're asking you to tell me about yourself, they're wanting you to touch on your resume, but go a step further, right? Talk about what your background is. I've been in the industry X amount of years. I've dealt with different types of roles, leadership, C-suite, et cetera, right? But talk about beyond the actual resume. Talk about you as the person. Make sure you throw in kind of, if you're from the Midwest or, just talk about your upbringing a little bit, right? Hey, I grew up in the Midwest. I've been around exposed to A, B, and C, or I grew up in New York, right? And so I was able to be around a lot of different cultures, had a lot of different experiences, which have helped me translate into this career that I'm pursuing there as well. So go beyond just what you see on the resume. It's important that you do that because you want to start to build some character behind the resume that you presented to the actual people you're interviewing with there. So the next one I see that is a pitfall that happens is, what's your biggest weakness, right? And I hear people tell me what they said in that type of to that type of question, and I know it's not a good answer, right? So when they're asking you to tell me your biggest weakness, they don't want to hear that you're a perfectionist or you don't know how to delegate a responsibility. What they're wanting to know is your process for improvement, right? So you want to give them a scenario, talk about what you did, and talk about how it's now become a strength, right? So, for example, you can say, I'm just kind of making this up on the spot here, but you can say, hey, when I first started my career, I really wasn't organized, and that was something that was challenging to help me get ahead and complete tasks at a proper time. I reached out to some peers, some individuals who were having success, set some time up on their calendar, understood how they structured their calendar, and I used as a template to build out my own structure. And now I'm one of the most efficient people in my team, and I actually coach my peers that are recently new hires on how to structure their day for success there as well. So you're essentially giving them a problem, talking about what you did, and now you're sharing the results, right? That's how you want to answer that question. So make sure you answer that question right, because you really can kind of put your foot in your mouth if you answer that the wrong way. So I wanted to just touch on that as well, because that's a common kind of trap question, I would say. The next one that I feel like it's kind of a trap question that necessarily falls underneath that is the where do you see yourself in 5 years, right? They don't want to hear that I see myself being in your role at that particular point in time. That's not what they want to hear, right? What you want to actually answer that question is in terms of describing what that job does on a day to day, or where you find value in the job, right? You may be describing the actual role that that person is in, but don't put a job title on it, right? In that particular point, right? Say, I love to see, I'd see myself in a role where I'm actually helping develop the younger generation and providing them coaching and developing their skill set to further their career, right? That's something that you could be a leader on or a manager, right? Right. So just think of answering the question in the manner of describing what that role looks like on a day-to-day basis, or how they're providing value or impact within the organization. Don't describe it in the terms of a job title, right? So make sure you get that described appropriately there as well. And another thing that you want to look at, right? So I'm just kind of shifting gears, is you want to have some good questions prepared, right? Like, you want to have questions that really show that you're paying. It's just showing that you're engaged, that you're involved, and you want this job, right? If you're really good and you can break down information and formulate a question on the spot, that's even awesome. So if you hear the manager tell you something, you're well versed in that product or that system or whatever, right? Use that as another question and go a step further in the course of that interview that you're having, and talk about, it really shows that you're paying attention. It also shows that you have a level of acumen that you can actually go a step further than just the surface, right? But if you're not, that's perfectly fine. Just have you a couple prepared questions, right? And that's why it's important for you to do your research on the company, connect with people on LinkedIn to try to get their insight on it as well. And so have some prepared questions, right? Things that I have written down that could be good questions to ask is, what does success look like to you in this role, right? What could I do to come in and have an immediate impact, right? When you think about your current team, what's one thing that you feel like it's lacking, or something that I could step in and make an improvement on the team for the future success? Or if you have something about the organization, right? If they went through a just big change or undertaking, can you tell me how that will have an impact in this role significantly there as well? Another thing that you can always ask the manager is, what do you feel like, the biggest catalyst for your success has been through your journey, if they've been at the organization for a while? I think that's another good question to ask. And this is just one that just kind of gives you a little bit of a personal touch. You can say, what do you feel like your greatest experience thus far within the organization has been, right? And so you want to try to get them to essentially have to pause and not give you a regurgitated or pre-rehearsed answer there as well. So when you're thinking about the questions you want to ask, think about something that would make someone have to pause for a second, really think, and give you an answer there as well. So have some prepared, have 2 to 3 at least. And then, leave some time in there for organic as well. Don't try to give them 5, 10, questions on it as well. Just a solid 2 or 3 are really good there. And then at the end of it, right, a couple things that I always like to do, right, is kind of say, after this, you've went through this interview, I appreciate the time and speaking with you and the conversation that we've had. We've talked about my background, learned about the role, and I really feel like I'm interested in this opportunity, and I really feel like my skill set would thrive in this role as well. So one question I just wanted to ask you is, after our conversation today, is there anything that you see that would make me unqualified, or question I didn't answer that you would think I wouldn't be a good fit for the role. And I like that question because they've essentially looked at your resume on paper, they've had a conversation with you, and now you're trying to get a good gauge in terms of where you are. Are you a potential candidate to move on to the next round? Or are you not, right? And so it gives you the ability to really kind of not have to wait for weeks, days, whatever the case may be, to get a response. You can ask that question in the course of that conversation and leave that as kind of your finishing question, is what I would say, or what I like to do there as well. And you'll know where you stand, and you'll know where you're headed, and you can move accordingly if you're interviewing in multiple places there as well. Or if you're not interviewing multiple places and you don't think this is a good opportunity, you'll kind of have a good answer with that question there. And then the last one, make sure you talk about next steps, right? So what is the timeline? What next steps are there? A lot of people don't ask that question. Unfortunately, interviewers, I have a lot of friends who've interviewed and they don't ask that question. I encourage you to ask that question. And the reason is you want to ask that question is you have an expectation of how long you should wait before you should hear a response. And the second piece to that is, if you don't hear a response within that time frame, it essentially gives you a permission to reach out, right? If they say we want to have this decision, or we're going to make a decision on the next steps, or if you're going to move to the next round by Friday, and Friday comes around, Monday, you can reach out and just say, hey, we talked. You said you'd be looking to make a decision on Friday. And I just want to touch base to see if there's been any updates there as well. And so it gives you the opportunity to kind of take control of where this conversation is headed. And it gives you that ability to know a timeline when you can follow up there. So I hope that was helpful. I want to see everyone get the jobs that they want, right? And so if I can, share some information that'll help you have success in your job or your interview, then I'm all for it there as well. So let me know in the comments if I missed any tips or things that you've experienced that you feel like, hey, this is a way to, avoid this pitfall or this trap question as well. Leave it in the comments below. If there's something that you guys want to hear me talk about, leave that in the comments below there as well. So I appreciate y'all tuning in today's episode. As always, if I'm lit and you lit, then we lit. So stay lit. I'm out.